Good morning, good evening in other parts of the world, and thank you so much for signing up for today's extremely important webinar, which is basically in honor of our caregivers, because our caregivers are the ones who make, sorry, if you could mute yourself, please, once you join in. So our caregivers are the ones who make the difference, in the lives of our loved ones, because when struck with the word cancer, it's not something individualistic anymore, because it's not only about the patient, it's about the full family, the friends, everyone come together to support, and that support means a lot. But when even for the family, it's a huge process emotionally, process, like, to see your loved one going through the treatment. It's not easy. So how do we deal with this? And we have our esteemed, I'm so grateful for the great speakers we have for today. And I want to thank Sharon, who is also one of our speakers, who brought this up in our support group. In our BCH, we have a very private WhatsApp support group for the patients and the families. And Sharon mentioned that if we could have something for our caregivers. And thank you, Sharon. And I always respect and acknowledge the viewpoints, the insights from our patients, their families. And that's my priority, as an individual. So, and not only from the organization standpoint. So today's topic is cancer caregiver, how to support the treatment and walk through the emotions. And before we start, and before I introduce you to our esteemed speakers, I would just like to give a brief, because we have many new audience today in our forum. So who we are, basically, I'm Dr. Lopa. I'm the founder and president of BCH, and this is my 100% full-time pro bono voluntary service. I was a research professor at University of North Carolina, but I resigned in 2017 to start this organization to bridge the gap between the developed and developing countries. But how do we do that? Breaking the taboo, breaking the breast taboo. But there were different, the mission and vision was always grassroots sustainable solutions, so that we can be there for the people, who are not only about being affected with cancer, but like, for example, the early focusing on early detection, prevention of cancer. These are also our other missions. So what are the missions? We have different programs, but our emphasis is early detection and prevention. So we have developed many awareness early detection cards, and which are circulated within our community network, and these are very helpful because these are one stop. And we also have breast self exam card for all different genders, like men and women, and now we have it in 24 languages because of our volunteers. Ours is a volunteer driven organization, so I cannot be more grateful to our volunteers for all the translations from scratch they have done to help me. So please download all this information. Everything, all our services are free of cost, and everything goes for the cause, whatever donations we receive. So that's why, please download these resources. We have research articles being done by our interns, and so many different things, valuable information, the videos that you will find, today's video and also our previous videos you will find on our website. So please download and share. So one of the other goals is community outreaches and screening camps. So what we believe is we go to the community, teach about the breast self-exam, or teach about all the different techniques, how people can save their own lives, empower them, but also take accountability, navigate them towards the right resources. It's not that we just go and give lectures. I have my WhatsApp number with everywhere, wherever I go. My email address is with everyone. So I try my best to navigate and help and support, when someone comes back saying that, we can now feel the symptoms. So that's why it's very important that the community outreaches are really working very well. I would kindly request everyone to please mute yourself. If you could please mute yourself kindly. Thank you so much. So our next, chapter that we have is a huge project going on, is the villages adoption. And I'm so thankful to our team, in the Kachar, from one village, we adopted 11 villages. And I'm so proud of Sana Lembi Devi, who is our project coordinator, who is here today also in our forum. And so with our team, Ranjita, Sapna, and many more, we have been executing this villages adoption, where we take care end to end, taking them to the hospitals, giving them food, then providing them with the initial medications, all of that, because when we are dealing with the village people, they have no money, they don't have money for food. So health is the least priority. But taking care of them, going door to door and doing the screening, and collaborating with the local cancer hospitals like Kachar Cancer Hospital and Silchar Medical College, where we get the subsidized treatment. So that really is working so well. And now we are replicating it. So I'm coming to India on 13th June. We'll be staying till 20th August. So we're adopting more villages. I'm going to Chennai to adopt village. I'll be going to West Bengal, Orissa, and other places, for the outreaches. And also we have vision for adopting more villages in India. So now this was another program. Then comes the support group. So while I was working with all the patients, when I was going through all these outreaches in India and also in the US, I came across many parts of India where they told me that they have no idea what support group is. And it's so sad to know, because they wanted to talk to other people, other women and men fighting cancer. And it's a lot of times families' contribution was not that much helpful. They would be telling me like, they don't want to talk about it. Why do you want to go and talk to them? But that's not the case. When I started to talk to them, they were embracing me and telling me, and that's where the concept of support group came to my mind in 2019 when I was doing the community outreaches. And we have local support groups, but we also have very private WhatsApp support group, and we function as a family. It's very much anonymous. Like, I never post. That's why I always say only 5% of our work is posted on the website, else everything is patient privacy. Then comes our patient treatment aid. Our revenue is very low. We do not have any government fund, and we just thrive because of our community who raises funds for us. Many kids will sell products, cupcakes, baked things, or, like other organizations will have musical things, donate the proceeds to BCH or through different ways. And that's how we are sustaining. But whatever we are getting from there for the patient treatment aid for the underprivileged, we are serving them, because for them, our maximum we can provide one patient is $150, which is like 15,000 to 20,000 or $250, because we can't afford more than that. But what I do is not only providing them with the initial boost to have the diagnosis, but when they come under the government aid, kind of helping them through and through by navigating them towards the hospitals where we are able to do this treatment. And this is in India I'm talking about. In Africa, we collaborate with Thinking Pink Foundation, where we are actually helping and serving many women who are very young women diagnosed with breast cancer. So that's how we are helping our patients. With research is very grassroots level. We are doing epidemiology study, clinical data analysis. Our research is IRB USA approved, IC Ethics Committee India approved. Now we are working with Africa Ethics Committee, and I'm thankful to those who are our Africa collaborators for helping me to do this. And I don't know if they're here now today, but they all also signed up. Now also, so yeah, these were all these recent programs that we are doing. Of course, we did a lot of work with COVID, but for me, my torch bearers are my students. I cannot be more proud of them. Our volunteers, our team, they are, I kind of can't tell you how proud I am for all of them, because when I see them taking the message forward, that's my biggest accomplishment, So that's who we are. We function. BCH is a family. Everyone can join us whenever they want, with their volunteer thought process. So that's how we function. Please check us out at www.breastcancerhub.org. Now we come to our main event today, and I am so thankful to our speakers. And Dr. Raghava, he has been, I meet so many oncologists, but he is someone, I can't tell you how helpful and kind-hearted he is. He has been helping our patients in our support group, and so much. He will call them and talk to them. Whenever I need help from Dr. Raghava, I always get help from him. So thank you so much, Dr. Raghava, for being there for us all the time. And we are so honored to have him. He is such an great oncologist. So he is a medical oncologist, and also he is specialized in palliative medicine, and he is from the Levine Cancer Institute in Charlotte. So basically, he is specialized in the field what we are going to talk about today. So we couldn't have found someone greater than to speak about our caregivers, how they can walk through this journey from the treatment perspective. And that's what we are going to hear. Then we will go to our next speaker, Sharon, and our next speaker will be Leena, and then we will open the forum for Q&A session. So thank you, Dr. Raghava. I would like to put the spotlight on you, and please take it from here.
Lopa, thank you so much for, first of all, a wonderful introduction about Breast Cancer Hub itself. And I know we have been part of this for several years now, and all the wonderful work you do, as well as a huge team of people that understand your vision and taking that vision forward. A humble introduction about myself. Thank you so much. And again, we're all here for a purpose and doing the best we can to care for this very difficult kind of a disease, as opposed to anything else we can think about. And while I'm going to start, but how do I share my screen? Give me a moment, please. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes. So probably the subtitles, Raghava, you can.
Yeah, I took it out.
Yeah. Okay,
yes.
Thank
so
you.
that must be a new feature on Zoom where
Yes.
it
Zoom
does
introduces
closed
every
captioning.
now and then. Yes.
Thank you everyone for spending your time today. And since we are keen on making this as interactive session as possible, I'm going to keep my content as limited but practically relevant. And in fact, when Lopa reached out to me and I was thinking about what do I really want to talk about, it was very interesting because I've never, to be honest, given a presentation like this. It was really most of my presentations were on research-driven, evidence-based treatment protocols and advancements in treatment. And when I was really thinking about how do I really want to put this presentation together and who is my audience, it was very interesting. It really changed my own perspectives about how I look cancer and how I look from a different angle than what I traditionally do on an everyday basis. So let's see how it works. But I really would like to be as interactive as possible and spend more time answering questions and thoughts and ideas and feedbacks than just slides. So we're going to focus on the cancer caregiver. Who are they and how to support the treatment and walking through those emotions. I think before we focus on patient and caregiver, we really have to understand the basics of what cancer itself is. And I think without understanding this, it will be very difficult to understand where everybody stands, whether it's a physician or patient or the caregiver. So cancer is basically a group of diseases that's characterized by an unregulated cell growth and the invasion and spread of these cells all across the body. And many times we use word of tumor interchangeably, but it's really not the same as cancer itself, because tumors can be benign or malignant, but cancers are always tend to be malignant. But cancers can be solid tumors, meaning that they arise from an organ, or liquids, which meaning that they can circulate in the blood, for example, like leukemia or lymphoma. So really going to the basic facts about cancer, the picture I have there looks at a normal cell, a cell that has what we call a cytoplasm and a nucleus. A nucleus is a central purple looking picture there. And the cytoplasm is what's the surrounding that. Within the nucleus is a simple fact called chromosome. And that chromosome carries a DNA, and the DNA has a structure to it. And of course, without going to the complexity of the structure of the DNA, simplistically speaking, it's basically made up of certain proteins that's just imagine like codes. Or, if you're designing a software project, we do coding, and this is exactly like that. But this is not something we design, but it's something that naturally evolves. So these codes are what basically runs our entire body. And while the normal cells grow all the time, they grow, they multiply, and as the cells grow older, they die, or when they get damaged, they die, and the new cells take their place. So this is a very orderly, systematic, controlled process. But what happens when, so how does the cancer form? So cancer can generally be talked about as a genetic disease, but it doesn't mean that it's always inherited form of genetic disease. So a genetic disease basically means that there is a problem in the gene. So as the first picture on the top depicts, the normal DNA in that gene, you see how it's colorful, meaning that there are different codes to it. But when there is a DNA change happens in a gene, that's basically what jumpstarts the cancer. The normal cells multiply within a very orderly fashion, but the cancer cells starts to grow outside that order. They break the barriers. But when it comes to really what causes cancer, of course, there can be many different ways to look at it. But as I mentioned, that cancer is basically a genetic disease. But these genetic changes can simplistically happen because of three important reasons. One, it can be inherited from our parents or from our lineage. Or two, there can be an error in these genes as the new cells form, and that's what can lead to cancer. Or there can be a damage to the gene because of many different reasons. I think the most common thing we hear about is smoking, or of course, there's so many other reasons, chemicals or ultraviolet rays, or many different reasons that can cause damage. So there are really three reasons: inherited, some errors, and some damage to the DNA. So, and the, let me go next slide. So as we go into the deeper aspect of each cell, we have to talk about the gene. What are these genes? So there are something called proto-oncogenes, meaning that these are the genes that are involved in the normal cell growth and division. But when these are altered because of various factors, they become cancer-causing genes, meaning that these cells can grow and survive and live longer when they should not. Whereas the second aspect of it is the tumor suppressor genes. That means in our cells, we have genes that actually supposed to suppress the tumors at a very early stages of development. But when these tumor suppressor genes are altered, it causes these cells to grow and divide at an uncontrolled fashion. And there's also one more term I want to use, something called cancer or DNA repair genes. That means that there are genes in our body which actually repairs the damaged DNA. But when those repairing genes are altered, then there is no repair that happens, means that these cells can grow. There's a term called cancer microenvironment. Think of it as if, since I live in Charlotte, I'm going to take the example of Charlotte. If I'm living in Charlotte, but which part of Charlotte I'm living in? A suburb of Charlotte. But in that suburb, where am I living in? I'm living in a community. So what does that mean? I'm living in a house where my family lives. I have a garden around my house or an area around my house. And beyond that, I have a community of people or community of houses or the people who live in those communities. Beyond that, I have a school system. Beyond that, I have stores and things like that. And beyond that, I have a city where all the different business establishments are there. So what it really comes down to is, this is called a microenvironment, meaning right around the tumor, there are so many cells. There are cells like T cells, meaning that the cells that are trying to fight the cancer. There are cells that are making the other normal cells grow. There are blood vessels that are supplying the oxygen and the micronutrients to these areas. So this is called the microenvironment. Why it's important to understand this is all this can have an influence on how the tumor grows or how the tumor behaves or how the tumor interacts with these with this community. Eventually, one more word is metastasis, meaning any cancer can metastasize anywhere it wants to go in the body. So there's really no particular predictability or a rule that where it can go or where it cannot go. They usually metastasize by two ways: by lymphatic system, which is a system that actually carries the lymph all over our body, and our blood system, where our blood is circulated all over the body. I usually give an analogy of our road networks. I use lymphatic, I call the lymphatic system just like our local roads. That means they can only really go so far, but they are more narrow, smaller roads that takes from one place to another place. Whereas the blood system is like an interstate or highway, meaning that the cancer cells, once they enter into the blood network, they can go as far as they want to go because they are widely connected. So that leaves us with the basic hallmarks of cancer. So this is like in a summary. And although it's a little scary looking picture, it has all sorts of symbols there. What it really meaning is it has a replicative immortality. It induces angiogenesis. What angiogenesis means is it makes the blood network or the blood vessels grow into the tumor to supply itself some nutrition that it needs. It resists cell death, meaning that it blocks the components in our body that makes it basically mortal or prevents it from dying. And sustaining proliferative signaling means it gets the signals from the body to make it grow itself, as well as it basically evades our immune system. So it silences our immune system. Our immune system does not recognize these cancer cells. And of course, it activates the invasion and it activates the metastasis, meaning that when these cancer cells travel somewhere else, they can behave the same way or they can behave differently because these cells can change based on, again, its microenvironment. That means if I move from Charlotte to Chennai, my interaction with my community around is going to be different than how we interact with my community in Charlotte, meaning how it changes me as a person. That's how cancers change as well. So in that, as we understand what cancer itself is, we have to go to the core of the situation, which is the patient itself. There can be two ways we can look at the patient. One, the physical symptoms that they're facing, that a person is facing. They can range, of course. I put in a very broad aspects of symptoms, but they can change depending on what cancer we're dealing with, ranging from, is it the cancer happening in the brain or this region or the lungs or the breast or the abdomen? Of course, the symptoms can vary a lot. But there are non-physical aspects of this cancer itself, which are lots of different ways they can manifest. Shock, disbelief that can happen at the time of cancer diagnosis. So lots of these feelings of anger, denial, and of course, fear. And the questions are always asked, why me? Why not someone else? Could I have prevented this? Is there anything I did in my life? Or this is just not fair. And the anger can be directed at different ways, like to God, to themselves, to the healthcare providers or healthcare professionals. And of course, this naturally leads to negative thoughts. The pessimist stands at, oh, this is it. I'm going to die in the next few months. I'm going to die in a year or two. That leads to the thoughts about the fear of the future. If someone have children or they're taking care of their mother or father or parents, or it's just endless thoughts. What happens to my family? What happens to my own body? Am I going to suffer? I'm going to be in pain. And how their friends are going to interact with them. Are they going to leave me? Are they going to stay with me? So all this leads to the feeling of loss of control, because you feel like I don't have anything I can control here. That leads to distress, that leads to anxiety, sadness, depression. So these are the non-physical symptoms that are very difficult to be objectively identified. And that leads to the feeling of loneliness because nobody is recognizing them. But again, we have a lot more about that we talk. But these are important, that where as a physician, how much I have to recognize these symptoms and when do I recognize these symptoms? So it really a complex interactions or complex interplay of all these mind, body, spirit, and environment means what happens around. Like I said, where I am matters. So how my community is, how my micro environment matters, how my mind, body, and spirit interacts. So within all this, we talked about the cancer itself, the problem. We talked about the person who's going through that problem, and now who is around that problem. I'm sure we see even in our smallest of the interactions, you have a problem at work, like you have a bad day, your boss yelled at you or something like that. Naturally, what happens to you? You may be cooking and something falls from your hand, and your kid may be doing your homework and leaves their book or something there and goes. Your natural inclination is to yell at the kid for leaving the book rather than thinking about why that led to that. Yeah, it's natural. It's very human. We all do that as well on an everyday basis. But that's where really the caregiver is a part of this whole whole picture. And this is a very blank slide, and I intentionally left it blank because the caregiver role, to be honest, I see that it's an invisible, powerful role. We forget about caregiver as a physician or as a care team because we are so much focused on the disease and the patient. We forget the really one of the important part of the journey is the caregiver. And to be honest, there's not a lot of research that's done in this. There's not a lot of things that we know about. There's not a lot of work that was done about caregiver. There was not much we understand about the caregiver. And that's why I left it blank. To be honest, even I couldn't think about what do I put in here in the slide. I left it blank because that is where I think a lot more is needed, and we'll talk about it in a moment. How do they all integrate? All these really things. This is how complex it is. And this is it's a it looks like a very simple picture, but look at the complexity of this picture. The first step is who is in the core? The individual patient. Our goal is entirely how can I make this person better? But to be honest, where do I stand as a provider and a team? I'm not the next in the role there. I'm actually the layer that comes after that. I look at this as a layers of an onion, where each layer is important. Even the top, that little flimsy, crispy skin that I take it out, but I'm sure maybe there are some people who use it. But every layer has its role in it. Without that, the core of that onion cannot preserve its integrity. That's exactly how this is. An individual patient has to go through so many things: biological factors, socio-demographics. They're worried about insurance coverage, risk, their medical problems, their medications, knowledge, attitudes, their own beliefs about what they want to do, decision-making, and psychological reaction, how they cope with each problem. I'm sure we all cope differently with each problems, even smallest or the biggest problems. And how do the families interact with that? What does the family dynamics are? And that's important, right? I mean, we all have frictions in our lives that may interplay into this situation. Friends, the network support, and next comes the provider team. What is their knowledge? How do they communicate with all this with the patient and the caregiver? How do their own cultural beliefs come into play with the patient and the caregivers? Like someone always used to ask me when I first started my practice, "Doc, do you believe in God?" And my answer, I didn't know how to answer that question for the longest time. I pray every single day, but does that really mean that I believe in the God to treat my patient? So it's a very complex thought process about how do I answer that question. In fact, some of my patients would ask me, "What God do you believe in?" I struggled with that answer because I wanted to say we're all one, but at the same time, I don't want to downplay of what they believe in. So it's a very complex questions about how my own cultural beliefs plays into my interactions with my patients and my caregivers. And how do I use this teamwork to provide this support? Then comes as an organization. That means how do my team and my organization helps to support through leadership, delivery system. Like I may have a navigator, but how do I use that navigator? At what instance I use the navigator? I may have a great support network, but how do I use the support network for this person, etc., etc. Then comes the local community and environment. The support groups or the private cancer organizations, the nonprofit organizations, the specialty mix, like it's endless, it's just endless. Then comes the state health policies, of course, the Medicaid reimbursements, and how do the hospitals work, and how do the regulations that work around the clinical trials work, etc. And of course, the national. What I'm trying to say in the slide is every single entity on this picture has a role in that core of that person. And that is important. But what is one more slide, and I think I would try to close this one. This is another very important. How does this context of this support changes during the cancer journey? Someone may have a stage 1 cancer, or someone may have a stage 4 cancer. But do all these interactions play out the same way in each stage? No. It varies depending on where they are in their cancer journey. And that changes as you go along. Like providers might be really the most important thing in the first few stages, and family and social support and community plays a little distant role. But as you go along, and in the survivorships, or sometimes in stage 4 cancer's end of life, each one of them have to play a much larger role than what they did in the early stages. And it does change. And sometimes the community becomes the first one, and family might become, social support might be the first most important thing. So things like that can change as we go along. It's important to understand this. As a physician, what's my perspective? So when I'm meeting someone when they're first diagnosed with cancer, and I'm sitting with them, and we spend about 45 to 60 minutes during my first visit, and sometimes it takes about up to 2 hours, and everyone understands why it's important. This is what a patient sees, right? The first day I meet with them, this is what they see. It's like, oh my God, I see this doctor, a strange guy sitting in front of me, talking all these treatment options and everything. And in their mind, they're thinking about what test do I need to go to? Oh, who do I need to meet next? Oh my God, I'm scared of that MRI. Oh my God, what lab? Oh, somebody's going to stick me again for the blood. I'm scared of needles. Or how many more people I have to meet? And, is it my cancer really bad, or is it okay? It's treatable. Oh my God, I have to take off from my work. Oh, I have to drop my kid at a friend's place. Oh, how do I explain all this to my wife and my sister and my mother, who's going to ask me 110 questions? This is what the patient is going through when I'm meeting with them, to be honest. That's why I always feel like they understand only 2% of what I talk. It's not their fault. And this is how, as a care team, we view. So we're looking at, hey, how do I get these resources into this person and into this treatment plan so we can get the best out of this treatment? So you see how different perspectives are. With that, I can take a question or two now, or we can take questions as we go along. I'll leave it to Lopa to coordinate that. But this is certainly a very important topic because it gives us a whole perspective of everything integrating together. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Raghava. So I feel that we can take the questions at the end, because I'm sure there'll be so many questions, with such an important topic. And if you could kindly stop sharing the screen, that way I can, yes. So thank you, Dr. Raghava. I just loved it how you basically, brought from the genesis of cancer to actually, how we can go from different perspectives. I love the blank slide where you said invisibility, invisible, powerful. So that means so much. From one slide, you kind of told the the role of a caregiver, right? And thank you. It was amazing. And because when someone's diagnosed, many times when patients reach out to me, it's like the family members, I have to explain, why this happened. And this is like a perfect explanation. So, and then from all the stages, you have explained it so well. Thank you so much, Dr. Raghava. I'll take to the next speaker so that, we can do the Q&A at the end. I know the hands are raised, so kindly please let our next speakers, present, and then we can do the Q&A. So our next speaker is Sharon Nixon-Crenshaw. She's the founder of Crenshaw Business Group, and Sharon is a cancer caregiver advocate. And Sharon will share her perspective. And thank you, Sharon, for bringing this up in our support group. And so that's why, in your honor and in honor of all the caregivers, we are doing this today. Over to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Lopa. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. And Lopa, thank you for putting together a caregiver's presentation. It's greatly appreciated because as a caregiver, you hear about people having cancer, but you don't really get in depth until it actually affects you personally. My girlfriend was the first person that was really close to me that was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. But what gave me the ability to help support her is when I showed up at the hospital the day that she was diagnosed, she had the most energy. Even though she had been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, she looked me in the face and she said, "I'm going to beat this." And to hear her say that, it just lifted my spirit, because I thought that when I got there that she was going to be really, really down, but that wasn't the case. So where her spirit gave me the opportunity to help lift my spirit. And so when it lifted my spirit, it helped me better to support her. So being there with her to support her through her journey with her chemo, with her radiation and all of that, and just being there with her. But I didn't realize that I was being prepared for 6 months later for my daughter to be diagnosed with breast cancer as well. So one of the things, it can be very emotional for a caregiver to experience this, especially when you have 2 people in your family or your close-knit network to be going through cancer at the same time. But at the same time, you have to find ways to support them, and then also being emotionally intact yourself to have to deal with, their treatments, their doctor visits, and all of that. And so the best thing that I can say for me, I had to figure out a way to help me overcome all of this. And one of the things that I did is I was just praying and just thinking, and a word came to me, which was joy. So basically, I try to keep joy in every situation so that it helps me deal with it. If I have to read a poem, sometimes I go on Google and I just Google the word joy, and then I Google poems and I read a lot of the poems, and it kind of like helped me lift my spirit. And another thing is different songs. You find songs that will help you brighten your day, brighten the patient's day. But the biggest thing for me is, even though I'm supporting my family member or my friend, but then I need support as well. So it's like, how do I get the energy to continue support my family member? And one of the ways that I did this for myself was to take walks in the park, just walks in the park, just to hear the nature of the birds. And another thing I do is walk around the lake and just to see the water. And another thing is calm music. Calming music can be so soothing to your heart, your mind, and your soul. That's what works for me. And also being a part of the Breast Cancer Hub support group, there is a lot of family members that's there. They ask questions. They try to get support. Lopa has been an amazing support person for my family, and the things that she has shared, even like with medical medical treatments, I would call her and say, hey, the doctor said this or whatever. And she will like reiterate that in layman's terms so I can understand it, so my family member can understand it. So that is greatly appreciated. And so the best thing I can say is, as a patient, caregiver, is to have a positive mindset. And if you know someone that you know is a caregiver, one of the things that you can do for them is just call them up on the phone. Just say, hey, how you doing? How was your day? Is there anything that I can do for you? Any way that you can find to support that caregiver, because they do. They get overwhelmed, they get burdened down, and they just need someone to step in to kind of like give them a hand up by lifting their spirits. Because sometimes the spirits can be down, but if you can just, like I said, give them a call, see if there's anything that you can do for them, or just come by and take a walk with them. And just, you don't necessarily have to talk about the patient, just happy things. Just talk about happy things, walk around. And like I said, the biggest thing for me is just the poems on joy. And I feel like if you have joy in your heart, the patient sees the joy that you have. And one of the poems that I really like, that I read often, give me 1 second, is sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. So just having that outlook, having that joy, like I said, it can be hard, it can be emotional, but we have to find ways day to day on how to deal with it. And I find the way to deal with it and to support others, caregivers, is just doing it through joy. And Lopa, I really appreciate you taking the time to put this together. And I hope something that I said is encouraging to other caregivers. And my name is Sharon Nixon-Crenshaw. I am a part of Lopa's hub, breast cancer hub support group. And if anybody would like to reach out to me, you can reach out to me through the group, and I'd be more than welcome to have a conversation with you, and we can get through this together. It's just all about everyone supporting everyone. Thank you so much, Lopa.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. I mean, in few words, you have said so many things. And honestly, I'm sure Dr. Raghava will agree with me. Till you spoke, even whenever someone is reaching out, I'm always thinking about the patient, what is the update of the patient? And we never ask that how the caregiver is doing. I mean, and now that I recall, I mean, when my father was diagnosed with CKD and all the ailments and what we went through as a family, but we had no one to talk to, so we were always thinking about my dad. So similarly, I think you have helped us to open our eyes, and Dr. Raghava has set the, so beautifully articulated presentation, which is going to go a long way to share to all the caregivers. And your talk will be an inspiration for other caregivers, and sharing your information and volunteering to help the other caregivers. The Caregivers Association, that is also needed. It's not only about the support family for the patients. And that's amazing. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thanks for believing in us. Thank you. And now we go to our next and our last speaker of the session. And she's an amazing person. I know her through her daughter. And, eventually her daughter, Isabel, she's still an amazing ambassador for Breast Cancer Hub. Like always stepping up, did so many things. Since 2019 Young Scientist Cancer Meet, I have known Bella. And I'm talking here now about Bella's mom, who is an amazing person. Like they reach out to me, they step up to help Breast Cancer Hub. She's Bella. Leena is also a support of us, is a support system for our Breast Cancer Hub support family. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Leena Zachariah, who is an occupational therapist, certified crisis counselor, and a cancer caregiver advocate. And we are so excited to have you here, Leena, and look forward to listening to you. Over to you, Leena.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Lopa, for that beautiful introduction. But first and foremost, I am so honored to have been offered a seat at this table. So it's a fantastic topic to talk about, and it is one of my favorites because not only as a caregiver, caregiver aspect for breast cancer, but also working as a therapist in a nursing home, we encounter these emotions, right? And why is it so important? Why is it so important to focus on caregivers? Yes, like you said, the focus is on the patient. They are the one going through the ailment. They are the one going through the battles of day-to-day battles that they have to deal with. But I feel caregivers are the cheerleaders. They are the cheerleaders, right? Be it a parent, be it a sibling, be it a friend. And caregiver doesn't necessarily have to be that you're physically taking care of that person. You're emotionally connected. And I've been around cancer for a long time now, since 2004, when my mother-in-law got diagnosed with thyroid cancer first. She was in India, we were here. So the emotions that you deal with, not being there and wanting to do more than what we get to do, is a whole different emotion that we don't talk about. Right. So it's just like, and I was starting to think when you asked me to speak, which I'm so honored you did, started to think about why is it so important? Caregiver, it's just like when you get on the plane and they ask you, put your mask on first. If there is a problem, put your oxygen mask on before you give it to your child. It sounds so selfish. Why would I do that? I'm a mother. I need to take care of my kid first. But if you are not in a position to be at your max potential to take care of somebody else, you're no good, right? You're no good. And then comes aspects of, we all do this. We take our car for servicing on a regular basis. We get our annual physical done regular basis, but we don't think our mind, which is the biggest control of this machine called body, the mind, we ignore it. We don't think we need to look into that. Because all of us, right? The mind controls our body. It runs our body. We are who we are. We are who we are because of that. So when it comes to a patient being diagnosed with cancer, Dr. Raghava explained all the basics of physiology of what happens in cancer. There is multiple emotions. Now, what I am going to say today is not just from, hearsay. It is from people who have voiced what they feel when their loved one was diagnosed. It could be a child talking from when the parent was diagnosed. It could be a spouse when the wife or the husband was diagnosed. And it could be any ailment for that matter, but we're focusing on breast cancer today. It's a form of grief. That's interesting, right? I mean, we didn't lose anybody, but it is, you lost the real person. It feels like your mother, who just got diagnosed with cancer, is something has changed. Or your sibling or your spouse who got diagnosed with a chronic illness, things have changed. You're not able to connect with them like you connected before. It's a form of grief. It's a form of losing the real person. Then there's the fear of the diagnosis, fear of, oops, now I have that in my medical history now. Like I told my daughter when my mom got diagnosed a year ago. Now, when you go to a doctor and they say, what is in your history, family history, you have a history of cancer. That history of cancer can also create so much fear. What if I get diagnosed? What am I going to do? How old I'm going to be when I get diagnosed? All these unspoken fears that take over. Then there is sadness. Why my mom? Why my sister? Why my husband? Right? And then you're angry. You're angry at people who are moving on fine and you are not able to. You're angry at them. Why I have to deal with all this? Why everybody else is fine? Then you're ashamed. They're ashamed to do things like, oh, my friends are having a party. No, how can I go? Somebody just got diagnosed with cancer. Or my family, my friend, my loved one is dealing with all this. How can I go have fun? I don't have the right to do that. Being ashamed, being guilty of not being there physically to do something. Like a lot of our family members are in India. When my mom got diagnosed a year ago, I'm here. I have two sisters who have been very strong pillars, and I'm just being the emotional support. And there are times when I feel, you know what a waste. What am I doing? Right? So these are the emotions that can eat up a caregiver. But we are focusing the patient, we're focusing on what they're going through, the treatments, like Dr. Raghava said, so much to do, so much to do. But what happens to these people who are connected, who are going to be a part of this journey, right? And then comes anxiety. Now, anxiety in the medical terminology, I'm not going to define anxiety because anxiety is not same for everybody. It could be so many different emotions. It could be my stomach feels bad. I just don't feel good. I cannot sleep. I want to stay in bed. I just don't understand what's going on. And Dr. Raghav said, you may not know what you feel. And that is one of the classic things people will say. I just don't know. I don't know what I feel. I know something is not right. I just don't know what to do about it. Don't feel right. So these are the emotions, right? So what can we do? What can we do, right? So prevention is always better than cure, right? Being proactive is better than reactive. We hear all these statements. Do we implement that in our lives? Why is it so important? Now, basic things like Sharon said, just reach out, talk. But I personally have experienced times when somebody's loved one got diagnosed with cancer, terminal illness, the person shut down. They closed the wall. Even if I wanted to, I could not. So there will be times, nothing wrong with that. I didn't know then. It took me time to understand that, wait a minute, it's not about me. It's about them. They're not ready for that. They're not ready for that, right? So to understand those things, it's the critical aspect of how do we take care of this. So being open to the emotion that such emotions are normal, such emotions are expected. There is nothing wrong in feeling this way. What can we do? Reach out to a physician, right? The first thing we can do. I don't feel good. Reach out to a physician. Maybe from there, you can get a reference to a psychologist, a counselor. Just talk about it. Talk about it. What if I'm not ready to talk about it? And a year ago, something fell in my lap, which is an organization called Crisis Text Line. Crisis Text Line, the most humbling experience I've had for 1 year. All you have to do is text. I don't know if you can see, 741 741. What happens? You text and somebody, a crisis counselor, a certified crisis counselor, texts back to you. You're not able to talk? We all have phones. It's a world of technology. I've never been so thankful for technology. And it's a nonprofit organization. It's available in the US, Canada, Ireland, and it's free. It's 24/7. There are trained counselors on board. And most importantly, it is active, non-judgmental listening. We all hear things. We fail to listen. Right? We fail to listen. And what happens on this text line is active, non-judgmental listening. And I can assure you, most of the time, all people want to know is that you care, you are listening. They don't want suggestions. They don't want your opinions. They just want you to listen. They just want you to validate the emotions so they don't feel the way they feel. Or to somebody to tell them it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel guilty. It's okay. And Dr. Raghav said the patient goes through so many emotions, right? they are bitter, they are angry, and they say, why me? Why me? So they act certain ways sometimes, because sometimes it's just a little control they have over certain things. I've had spouse tell me, why is she acting like this? I don't know how to deal with it. You know what my response was? You have the ability to get in the car and walk away and drive. They don't. They don't, right? But again, for them to understand that aspect of the patient, they need to be heard. A caregiver need to be heard. And for them to understand that, you know what, I really feel mad today. It's okay to feel mad. It's okay. Now, what happens if we take care of the caregivers? The question comes, well, why is it so important? What happens? Number one, we validate them. We let them know we care about them. That increases the empathy level. That increases the ability to understand what the patient is going through. That increases the level of patience for them to be patient with the loved one. And compassion. Compassion. And I always believe you can never pour out of an empty cup. I cannot give everything that I have in me if I don't have my cup filled. Right? So it is not selfish to take care of you. It is not wrong to take care of you. It's not wrong to focus on you sometimes. It's okay. And as a friend, as community, what we can do is reach out. Like Sharon said, reach out. Ask, what can I do? It's on their terms, not your terms. What can I do? What would you like me to do to help you? What is that I can help you with? It could be something, let's just go get our nails done. Okay, let's go get our nails done. Whatever works for that person, because it is about them, it's not about the person who's reaching out. And then you redirect them some needed, or you refer them to somebody else who can help them better. Bottom line is, for a patient to recover, you need a caregiver who's on full potential, emotionally invested, physically able to give the full recovery for that patient. As important as a treatment plan and the journey is, a healthy caregiver is very, very important in my opinion. And no matter what they are, no matter where they are, be it local, be it with the family, be it the person who's diagnosed, or be it far away, every caregiver needs to be heard, to be validated, to be understood that the emotions they're feeling is okay. It is okay. It's okay to feel what you feel. And that was a condensed form of the emotions that I had connected to this topic. This is something we can talk forever and ever. And I'm so thankful and I'm glad, Lopa, for introducing this webinar and giving me the opportunity to share my emotions. I'm very passionate about this topic because it is very, very important. And like I said, working in a nursing home, I use this phrase all the time: caregiver burden, caregiver burden, caregiver burden. And I've talked to families of patients and referred them to go see a psychologist, go see a counselor. It's okay. It is okay. It is absolutely okay. We have to be advocates for it. It's a stigma. It continues to be a stigma of talking about mental health. We take care of everything else. We need to take care of our mental health. It is not a stigma. It should not be. And people like us have to be the advocates for it. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Leena. I mean, I don't know. I'm like so emotional now. I can't even tell you that what you have said are so many things and so valuable and so important. I think I'm just fumbling with words, Leena. It's such a beautiful talk, and each of our speakers have just, I don't know. I mean, it's like we have in today's webinar, we have opened the forum to a very different perspective. And from now on, I think I'm sure, you then Sharon, you both have changed the mindsets, of oncologist, of me as a scientist, and me as an organization, like we also have to think of caregiver. And the way you said about all the emotions and, like taking care of yourself, the stigma, you brought everything together. Such an articulated talk, Leena. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I'm
Thank
so
you.
grateful that, to have you, Dr. Raghava and Sharon as our speakers for this. I mean, you have just took it to all three of you have taken it to a different level, and so helpful for our community. Thank you so much, Leena. And now I'm going to open the forum for questions. I would just like to have Dr. Chaturvedi speak first, because I know we have others also. And Charanjeev, if you're there, I know you wanted to pose a question too. Please, after Dr. Chaturvedi, please you go ahead if you joined in today, and then we will be opening up for everyone. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Chaturvedi.
Thank you, Dr. Lopa.
Thank you.
Speakers have really given excellent examples, and then their own some personal experiences and all that. See, but my wife had ovarian cancer in 2005 and lived up to 2014. And I was the only caregiver personally. I just wanted 2 minutes time, Dr. Lopa. You know what? I took her for an X-ray where I was working as a vice president in the hospital. So she was sitting in the audience along with the rest of the people. One lady sitting next to her asked, "What's your problem?" This is what really shatters the confidence of the patient. I saw her crying and saying, "I have cancer." This is where, worthless people, useless people try to show sympathy. And believe me, for 8 years afterwards, I had taken care to see that she never had shed tears anytime. I never had any emotional outburst. This is, an ovarian cancer patient at stage 3B, living for 10 years was a history, according to my medical oncologist. And probably I should take the credit for all the caregiving I could giving her faith, confidence that she can live, and also strength to fight. Thank you. Thanks, Lopa, for giving the opportunity. Anyway, I am also a cancer survivor, incidentally.
Yes. And Dr. Chaturvedi's story as a colon cancer survivor is published on our BCH website. Please download, read his story. He's an amazing person. Thank you so much, Dr. Chaturvedi, for sharing your wife's journey. Yeah, sincerely appreciate. Dr. Raghava, would you like to, I see your hand raised. Yes.
I guess I don't know how to remove that hand after I'm done answering, but I'll try to figure it out. But I want to tag along what Leena and Dr. Chaturvedi mentioned. Exactly what Dr. Chaturvedi mentioned just right now is, I think part of it is, if I'm a friend of someone who's diagnosed with cancer or whose spouse is diagnosed with cancer, sometimes it's our natural human tendency when we call or when we visit them to find out more details about the cancer, rather than focusing on not asking, but let that person voluntarily, whenever they're ready, to share those details. And that is really, you hit the nail there, that's where the perspectives of the people around, I called it the micro environment. If I'm living in a neighborhood, all my neighborhood wants to know what's happening. I want to know the details so they can reevaluate in their own mind, is this going to happen to me? No, because I didn't do this, or I did this. So again, it's nobody's fault. Unfortunately, it is the world we live in where we want to know those details and look at ourselves and say, okay, I'm okay. So when people, for example, I see, I'm a specialist in lung cancer. That's my area of specialty. And when someone says lung cancer, naturally they're stigmatized towards, oh, you must have been a smoker. Although we all try to emphasize that 25% of the lung cancers happen in people who have never smoked. And it can happen in women who have never, ever had even secondhand smoking exposure. So something of that nature. So I try to tell the friends of that family, whomever I meet, wherever I talk, is be there, listen, don't ask. Don't show them that you're curious to know their disease, but rather you're there to help if they ever need anything. And they will reach out once they get that feeling that this person is not seeking information from me, they will reach out. The reason they're not reaching out is because they don't want to share that person's, I mean, it happens to all of us, right? I fail an exam or something, I don't want to tell anybody. And this is not normal. Mine is a very little problem, but I think you both hit that point of, I wish there was more education geared towards general public as well, saying that don't stigmatize, don't say that, or not wanting to know the details, but instead be available. That's all. And that's what I tell most people. If there is a problem, don't shy away from calling. Don't shy away from visiting. Don't exclude them from the parties. I had a friend who was younger, who was diagnosed with cancer. And a month later, everybody stopped calling him for any of the get-togethers or picnics or their kids and families used to go. They did that for years, but suddenly he was not called anymore, because partly everybody felt awkward towards not knowing what to talk. And I tell them, it's okay not to talk about cancer. It's fine. Talk about normal things. Talk about celebrate everything else. So rather than focusing only on the cancer. So we always say, when I meet with my patients, I learned the art of making a joke here and there. It's okay. It's okay to make them laugh. Just because they have cancer, it doesn't mean they cannot laugh. They cannot, just talk about going to the beach or sitting there at the beach or how much their food certain likes. So it's really about stigmatizing. And of course, that comes with the education. It comes with the public hearing about these things rather than not talking about them. That's it.
Very nice, Raghava. That's so well said, Dr. Raghava. Thank you. Thank you for adding to Dr. Chaturvedi, Leena, and Sharon's perspective. Thank you. Any questions? Charanveer, are you there? If you're here, please unmute yourself and you can post the question. And the forum is open. Please unmute if you would like to come to the video mode, ask any questions. Yes, Dr. Chaturvedi.
If I am permitted to say one more experience.
Yeah, sure.
There are people who will come and waste your time. They try to sympathize by saying, oh, you have cancer. Oh my God. I heard my neighbor who had cancer died in 2 days. That's what they say. What for? They shatter the confidence of the patient rather than giving strength to fight. For 1 year, I never allowed any people to come and see my wife. I said, it's a period of infection. Don't come. That is what the caregiver should do. Probably not allowing some nonsensical people coming and talking nonsense and shattering the faith and confidence of the patient. It really does a lot of damage.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Probably, the caregiver needs to identify the people, those who want to help, but they are from the negative perspective. But there are many who will give positive strength too. So maybe, our caregivers, the patient families should encourage, those who they know that they are going to bring a positive impact to, because you need friend circle too, to talk to, like Dr. Raghava said, totally isolation is also not good. So Dr. Chaturvedi, you brought a great point. So I would say that, Dr. Raghava, Leena, Sharon, you can chime in what you feel on that discussion. But sometimes, judging that if that person is a negative impact, not to encourage, but there are many who may want to be a part of the journey and help in a positive way. For example, many times, I have noticed that the family is going through cancer, there are food meals, like if you do not have food being provided by the friends at the doorstep. And we have done that in Charlotte also. We do not disturb the family. We just provide food. That helps, like fresh food, like we make it for, we have a calendar being made who is going to give food in which day. So these are different ways, the community, the society, we don't have to go and talk to them, but there are many other ways, you can help and support the family going through cancer. You just have to ask what help you need. I think that is another important thing. They may not want to discuss, as Dr. Chaturvedi said, but there are many other ways, sometimes taking the patient patient to the hospital, if the spouse is busy in the full day work, accompanying the patient, being a positive energy and accompanying the patient, being non-judgmental, as Leena said, with the crisis counselor, the text crisis thing. So the non-judgmental is so important for our society. And there's always curiosity within the society for wrong things. If someone is doing good things in life, the curiosity is not that something that, something like the word cancer brings so much curiosity in the society. And I don't understand why, because there are patients who are diabetes is one thing, heart problem is one thing, like kidney disease is another thing. Why we do not have so much curiosity for our all other diseases? Why cancer is so much associated with the stigma? So those are the ways, our society also needs to step up to break those taboo, and so that we can help the caregivers, we can help the the families fighting cancer. So I think that is something that I feel, Dr. Chaturvedi, is so important that we translate this, but also keeping our arms open for help, for support, because we definitely need. I'm sure it was not easy for you as a husband when your wife went through this, everyday household, work and all of that, which you could have shared earlier, right? So it's a lot of things that a family goes through, because it's a prolonged treatment process. So it's not a 1 week treatment. So I think that is my take, but wonderful that you brought it up. I hear you, because I know this situation, because I come from India, right? So I know there are many cultures, many society, not only about India, but even in the US, there are places where I know that they shut down totally, and where we could have helped, but shut down with the wrong emotions. But if someone is wanting to, as someone is positively going to affect, I feel that help the caregivers should also take. I mean, it's totally the call of the caregiver and the patient. No, nothing under pressure, nothing to be pushed on the patient and the family. That is something also I feel we shouldn't push anything on them. It should be their own decision.
Can I add something?
Yes, Leena.
I saw this firsthand when my mother-in-law was diagnosed with thyroid cancer in 2004. We were there, but her response was, don't tell anybody. Because, so my question was, Mom, why? Why not? What are we hiding? Oh, no, there's no point. Don't tell people. So I felt that time that it is the guilt. Like Dr. Raghava said, somebody is diagnosed with lung cancer. The immediate thing is, oh, you must be a smoker. But they're non-smokers get diagnosed with lung cancer, right? So when you're diagnosed with cancer, there is this guilt already that, oh my goodness, I did something wrong. I ate wrong. I walked wrong. I did everything wrong. And that's why I got cancer. And that is also what people are thinking when they're asking, oh, you got cancer? What did you do? In their head, it is, what did you do? Why did you get cancer? So that stigma, that thing has to be worked on. And that can only be done by more and more education and teaching people that it's nobody's fault that you get cancer. It is nobody's fault. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not a sin. It's not a punishment for something you did. And we look at it that way, just like you said, we come from an Indian culture that we visualize things differently at times. Oh, I did something and that's why I'm being punished with having cancer. And the same thing with the caregiver. The caregivers are sometimes they're burdened, they're ashamed to say that, oh, my loved one has cancer. Because people are going to start judging. What did they do? How did they get cancer? Why did they get cancer? Now, what kind of cancer? So that is where the lack of wanting to share, wanting to open up, or wanting to communicate comes from what I feel. And that is why, just like mental health, cancer itself is like, it can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter rich, poor, big, old, nothing. It does not look at people, does not look at color. It can happen to anybody at any point of time. Thankfully, we have a lot of treatment options, a lot of good options out there to take care of them and prolong the life, but we do have to take the mental health issue more seriously to where we can help through this journey for the patient and the caregiver and everybody surrounded.
True.
I agree with you, Leenaji, but then there is only one point here. Take my case. It's about in 2016, I got my colon cancer. Well, this is more than 7 years. I'm doing very well. I keep myself so busy that I don't have time to think that I was a cancer survivor. Number one, I don't feel ashamed of saying that I'm a cancer survivor. There's no taboo and there is no superstition, nothing. And when I go and talk to people on awareness, I tell my case, see, I'm a survivor. Don't worry about cancer. You will survive. This is what I start talking to them. And when I talk about tobacco, I tell them I had tobacco in my childhood. And after 30 years, I got my colon cancer. So it can happen anytime. Don't touch tobacco. You know what? It depends on how you articulate and make your own story when it comes to creating awareness. But keeping yourself busy is something that is the main principle I have learned in life. My 2 children are in the US. Lopa knows. I stay alone. All my time I spend only to see that awareness is created, cancer screening is done for breast cancer, oral cancer, and cervical cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to, I don't take much time.
Dr. Chaturvedi, you are an ideal person. That's what everybody should be. Unfortunately, everybody is
It's not like
that way.
Yeah.
See, that is where we, that is the best strategy. Keep busy, stay positive, increase awareness.
And share your story.
Sharing your story.
So I just shared on the chat room the stories given to by our survivors, by our fighters, even in memoriam. We have stories which we published on our BCH website so that we can really, really inspire others fighting cancer. So I'm so thankful to everyone from different places, from USA, India, Africa, those who stepped up to share the story with us, because those stories are in local languages also. They're helping other fighters and their families to be inspired to carry on with the treatment from both emotional standpoint and, from the treatment perspective. So not everyone is like you, Dr. Chaturvedi, but I wish, because when I reach out, even in Charlotte, there'll be like every day, like if 5 or 6 new cases are reaching out, they tell me the same thing. Please do not tell anyone. So, like out of 5, maybe one person will be like very, open to this. And I totally respect their decision too, because, I'll never push, as I said, those who want to share, they will share. Those who want to be on a support group, they are there. Some may be anonymous also, or else there are many who still till now, I'm not talking about, like from many cultures, they still tell me, I don't want to be in the support group. There are many reasons too. They're sometimes scared of all the discussions going on, or sometimes they're like, I don't want people to know. And I respect that too. So I do one-on-one with them all the time. So, based on, I think, individuals, every patient, we have to honor every patient, what they want, what their families want. And that's what I feel our healthcare system also needs to, kind of think in that direction, how they can help the caregivers more, educate caregivers more, because I know patients going to different hospital system, but I don't think we have a separate, I don't know, Dr. Raghava, if we have a separate, I know in India, I'm going to pursue this. When I'm going to India, I'm going to talk to all the healthcare providers, if they can have a separate, communication with the caregivers also. And I don't know in Atrium they have it or not, so you will be able to say better. But I think it's very important.
You are visiting Hyderabad this time, positively.
Yeah, I will, Dr. Chaturvedi, for sure. Yes, I'm coming to Chennai and Bangalore. That's for sure.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. So yes, Dr. Raghava. So I think these are the different ways I'm thinking from this webinar. We can take forward how at the grassroots we can make some changes so that we can really help the caregiver situation and how they have to tackle the society.
Let me share one more very funny experience. My wife had cancer. I had cancer. When I go and talk to public about, when I tell them my wife had cancer and she died in 2014, I got cancer in 2016. And when I tell them that cancer is not contagious, sir, you are saying from one side your wife got cancer and you also got cancer, and you are saying your wife. Then I tell them she had ovarian cancer and I had colon cancer. These two cancers are different. Her cancer is her cancer, my cancer is my cancer. This is another big taboo many people have. I don't know how much effort you and I should put in to see that, that these things are removed.
Yeah, so in all my sessions, I talked about cancer not being contagious, Dr. Chaturvedi, and we also made an educational card And so if you go to our website under education, you will find one-stop cards where we have a card specifically for this message that cancer is not contagious. So please download, share it, because I do that in any community outreaches I'm doing, we are always talking about that. So, those are the gaps that we have to fill. It will not happen in one day, but even if we can help one family, I always feel that we are really, that is also a step, like a drop of water in the
Very true. I
ocean.
agree with you.
All right. All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you for giving the opportunity to talk.
No, thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi, for your insights. And thank you, Leena. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Dr. Raghava. I just giving if anyone has any question, otherwise we will wrap up. So please unmute yourself if you have any questions for our speakers.
Hey, this is Sharon B here. Thank you, Lopa, for bringing such wonderful people all together in a session. And it was really interesting to hear about their views and what they do and how great of caretakers they are. I'm from India, like many of you, and my dad was diagnosed with GIST cancer, which is very rare kind of stomach cancer. So what I'm trying to ask here is, how is it, is it any better in India right now in smaller cities? Because when he died in 2017, I struggled with even getting morphine for him or pain management or any kind of help when he was in his last stage of, cancer. So now my mom is diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, and I'm worried that the same situation might come.
Yes, a very good point, Charanbir, and I will add my thoughts, but if our speakers would like to say something first.
I can take the first answer. Yeah, just can go two different ways. It can be a relatively, I wouldn't say slow growing, but manageable cancer too. It can be aggressive depending on the scenario. Yeah, but you hit a very important point there. One is in smaller cities. I think in the major cities, I believe it's fairly well resourced these days. Whereas I'm also from a relatively smaller town called Nellore. And I could see the struggles. And in fact, when my wife's aunt was going through metastatic gastric cancer 2 years ago or 3 years ago in Tirupati, even though they have several, there's a medical school there and several super specialty hospitals, but you're right, she couldn't even get a single dose of morphine at the time when the pain was so intense, and the last few weeks of her care was just suffering in pain. And unfortunately, nobody around her could be able to do anything. Even though I myself has been a doctor and I have so many contacts there, I couldn't do anything except for our only answer we would get is transfer her to Chennai. We'll admit her in palliative care there. But the transfer was not, and unfortunately, an easy option in someone who is literally suffering through that pain and going through those travel. I don't know the answer. I don't know the regulations and policies in India, but I know it's not a problem at all here in the United States. But in India, I think that part of it has really still, again, a significant portion of the problem is surrounded with stigma. Opioids are very, very controlled and very difficult to get. And even when someone was started on opioids, when after significant struggle, we admitted her in a super specialty hospital. It's a SWIMS hospital. It's a very highly regarded hospital in Tirupati. But they first started her on a fentanyl patch, which, it's a long-acting opioid, which takes 72 to 96 hours to reach a certain steady level, and you won't have pain control until then, which was sad. And I have no insight into the logistics or the ways to get these medicines in India. But I do hear you, because as much as the focus is on treatments and everything, the end of life care is awful, especially in smaller cities.
Yeah. So the thing is here, I had to fight and, had used connections to get morphine tablet. And one tablet I gave to my dad and he could sleep for 27 hours. But then the tablet stopped working because the body is like shutting down at that point, no liquids going in. So that stopped working. And then the doctor suggested go for a patch. And the patch was 5 hours away from where we lived. And it was a Sunday, and the pharmacy was closed, they said. So now, next day, when I was supposed to go, I mean, before that, he passed away. But what I'm saying is, there should be something, in smaller cities. At least morphine is so cheap, and it helps in the beginning, why not give it? I mean, why not make it available and not the patients suffer before they leave? And now the mindset is that everybody have to suffer. Around my family, many people are getting cancer, and they all think that this is it. There is no other way, you have to suffer before you die when you get cancer.
Yeah, so Charanbir, I know you and I, we have been talking about this for a long time. That's why I was calling out your name, once our speaker spoke. Yes, yes, Dr. Chaturvedi, I just, you have something. We can't hear you, Dr. Chaturvedi. You are muted, Dr. Chaturvedi. All right, I think Dr. Chaturvedi, you're muted. So I'll just finish my thoughts here. So Charanbir and I, we have been talking about this. So I faced a similar situation in one of the remotest, like I'm not talking about Assam, but in the remotest places in Uttarakhand. And so what we did was we had our team, who was actually supporting, and she got trained with the palliative care too. So to provide the morphine and also, but it's very localized. It's very, because the patient reached out, that's how I got to know. But if they do not, so what I told Charanbir is I'll try my best when the situation comes, but so that we can do something, because we have a team in India. And also I'm going to talk, I don't know if Dr. H.K. Das is here. So he's also into, he's in the ICMR Dibrugarh, and what you all do over there, I would love to know more. And this time when I'm coming to India, because I usually go to the small towns only, so I will definitely bring it up, Charanbir, like how oncology, how the palliative team, they're taking care of the morphine situation or the end stage situation, how they're giving the soothe, tackling the patients at that time. So thank you for bringing this up. I wanted you to ask this question in the webinar so that it becomes more vocal. So anyone who is from India right now, who are connected to the small town hospitals, or who are physicians from India, I really am looking for your support here, so that, no patients can, like Dr. Raghava's experience, Charanbir's experience, and I experience it all the time with our patients from other parts of India. In Assam, we are very well connected to the hospitals in Kachar, but there are other provinces for the short, small towns where I face this. So please, from the physician perspective, if you could help, probably it's because morphine is kind of, there's so much regulations going on, but can it be, what can we do about this, right? I mean, how do we tackle this situation to help the patient families, patients at that point, at the end stage? So that would be my ask actually in today's webinar to the physicians or anyone in India who is connected to the healthcare system. Please connect me with them so that I can bring up our patients' families' request to you, so that you help us to make this change. Yes, Dr. Chaturvedi, please unmute yourself, because we are not able to hear you. Okay, maybe he's on phone or something. All right. So Charanbir, so we hear you, as Dr. Raghava said, and we'll try our best. But with your father's case, please reach out to me when you need, because I know someone who is on the palliative care team for us. So, and I'm going to talk to her, as I mentioned to you earlier. All right. So I think,
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you, Charan. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Raghava, for sharing this experience. And also, Dr. Raghava, if you have any connections in India, you want me to get in touch to bring this aspect, please let me know, so that we can together pursue something for the healthcare system in India too. So that, to take care of the, I always present, whenever I go, I talk about the palliative care, how we have to take care, but from the medication standpoint, how that's needed. I mean, a lot of people tell me like the side effects. I say it's the time when there's no concept of side effects coming in, like We just have to give them peace, that is more important. So yeah, these are the different ways I feel that we can make those changes. So, and I always take the feedback from our patient community, and that motivates me to, every day we improvise. So this is my new part now, that I have to go and take it to India and be vocal about it. So that is something that will probably help, even if we can make little bit change. So saying that, I think we don't have any more questions. So I would like to really close the, yes, Dr. Raghava, we are at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much for staying back to answer our participants' questions, our audience questions. So I would like to really close this webinar by thanking our speakers, Dr. Raghava, Sharon, Mrs. Sharon, and Mrs. Leena, for being amazing speakers today, for taking it to a different level where you have opened our minds, our thoughts, and being so in depth with your speech and articulation. So that is really, really going to help, and we are getting great feedback on the chat forum. And this is a recorded session, so please share this webinar with everyone so that caregivers do not feel that they're alone anymore, and we are always there for them. So thank you so much to everyone who came, who stayed back to listen, to be there for the full webinar. And thank you so much for joining us today, to our esteemed audience also. Thank you. Bye. Take care.